Good morning, everyone. I'm going to open up today's meeting for Assembly Judiciary. Welcome to everyone here in Carson City. We are having some technical difficulties, so we are not able to view those in Las Vegas, but our phone lines are still open and Zoom capacity is still working. So to anyone watching that isn't in Carson City right now, you will still be able to make public comment or testify if you choose. I forgot what I was going to say. I ask that everybody, again, turn down the sounds on your electronics. Do know that we will have public comment at the end of today's meeting. With that, I ask that the secretary please call the roll.
Assembly members Cole. Here. Dahlia. Here. Gonzalez. Gray. Here. Hanson. Here. Hardy. Here. LaRue Hatch. Here. Marzola. Moore. Here. Nadeem. Present. Orntlicker. Here. Roth. Here. Urick. Here. Chair Miller.
Here, and please mark that Assembly Member Gonzalez has arrived. Again, a reminder that with public comment, I'll announce the phone number at the end of the meeting for those who wish to call in. You can also retrieve the phone number from the agenda, which is posted on Nellis. You're also able to watch on Nellis, as well as you're able to watch live on our YouTube channel under the Nevada Legislature, under the Assembly. With that, we do have 3 presentations and a bill hearing today. So I always ask presenters to please be as concise as possible and limit your presentations to 15 to 20 minutes. That allows for time for members to have questions and, of course, for the public to make testimony. First on our agenda today is a presentation of an overview of the Nevada Supreme Court. So with that, I will invite those up who will be presenting. I will give you a few moments to get settled and ready, and then ask that you begin with introducing yourselves. One of the most difficult items for all of us to remember is that before we speak, to say your name to make sure that it's accurate in the minutes. Also, please make sure that the first time that you tell us your name, you also spell it so that we have it correct. And with that, I will go ahead, and we're just ready whenever you are.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Stocks, Katherine Stocks. I am the State Court Administrator, here with my colleague, Mr. John McCormick.
Thank you. Good morning, committee. My name is John McCormick, John, last name Mccormick, and I'm the Assistant Court Administrator at the Supreme Court.
First, I'd like to start, Catherine Stocks for the record. I'd like to start just by saying thank you for letting us be here to provide a brief overview about the Nevada Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals and the Administrative Office of the Courts. We serve the judiciary as a whole, and it is our privilege to be able to represent the judiciary for our state. We've been here a few times. This is my 3rd session, 2nd in person. And I'm looking around the room and seeing some of you that we worked together well last session to accomplish significant improvements and taking steps to improving access to justice across our state. And the slide here, have to look to the sides. The slide shows that our 2024 annual report has been published. We are happy to meet with any member that would like to go over the accomplishments from 2024. We also have a 2023 report since we haven't seen you in 2 years. And just to speak about the specific programs or initiatives that we have related to the Nevada Judiciary strategic priorities. We are working this year to re-up our strategic priorities. We are already completing the 2022 to 2025, and we will be making a 26 to 28 in this next year.
This next slide here, John McCormick for the record, I apologize, is just representation of Nevada's counties and judicial districts. As you know, we have 11 judicial districts covering our 17 counties. And we also have our limited jurisdiction courts with 17 municipal courts and 40 justice courts. This slide is a representation of Nevada's court model and structure, showing on the right side of the slide the Nevada appellate courts being the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals. On the left side of the slide, the trial courts, those being the District Court, Justice Court, and Municipal Court. And we can go into the specific jurisdiction of those courts a little bit later in the presentation. The Nevada judicial system is a separate and co-equal branch of state government, along, obviously, with the executive branch and the legislative branch. That's found in the Nevada Constitution, Article 3, Section 1. The responsibility of the judiciary, why it exists, is to resolve legal disputes brought before it in a fair, timely, and impartial manner. As I indicated on the previous slide, our judicial branch consists of the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, District, Justice, and Municipal Courts. And Nevada is a non-unified judiciary, meaning there's no one source of funding or administrative control. The Nevada Supreme Court is the state's ultimate judicial authority. The court's decisions become precedential law in the state of Nevada. The court is the state's final appellate court and hears all appeals from district court and has discretionary review of appeals from the Court of Appeals. One thing to note here is all appeals of district court decisions come to the Supreme Court clerk's office, and then they're screened based upon a Supreme Court rule to see if they go to the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court, and we'll have a few details on that momentarily. The court serves as both an error correction court and a court of last resort. An error correction court is a court that examines the record from the case at the trial court and determines if there was the trial court made an error in the conduct of that case. And then the court of last resort means that if the matter pertains to Nevada law or Nevada constitutional provision, the Nevada Supreme Court is the final authority on that. The things that can be appealed from the Nevada Supreme Court or at least petitioned for certiorari, the United States Supreme Court, are matters dealing with federal constitutional protections. There are 7 justices on the court, and the Chief Justice, amongst them obviously, administers the Nevada judicial branch pursuant to Article 6, Section 19 of the Nevada Constitution.
Catherine Stocks for the record. The Court of Appeals has 3 judges. The Court of Appeals is what's considered a push-down model, where all cases go to the Supreme Court, and then it is the Supreme Court that decides which cases go down to the Court of Appeals. And this information is reviewed pursuant to the Nevada Rules of Appellate Procedure. And the Supreme Court retains discretion to be able to accept any petitions for review from the Court of Appeals. Our Court of Appeals is quite successful and efficient in producing their decisions, and this model works well for Nevada. Next, we have our district courts. This is where the most likely is going to be the district courts or our limited jurisdiction courts, where people have interaction with our court system. We have the 2nd and the 8th judicial districts are here today. They will be presenting immediately after us about the overview of their courts. That's Washoe and Clark counties. We also have 11 other we have a total of 11 district courts in our 17 counties. Decisions from the limited jurisdiction courts that get appealed go to the district court before they could be then appealed up to the Supreme Court. And district courts hear all felony and gross misdemeanor criminal cases, and as well as family, juvenile, civil cases over $15,000.
John McCormick for the record. So if you're wondering where civil cases under $15,000 happen, that's at the justice courts. Those are considered a court of limited jurisdiction, being that their jurisdiction is defined by statute. It's not a general jurisdiction court like the district court. And our justice courts handle misdemeanor criminal matters, criminal and civil traffic cases, and they also handle preliminary hearings for gross misdemeanors and felonies. The preliminary hearing is where the justice of the peace considers if there's enough evidence to believe a crime was committed and the defendant possibly committed that, and bind them over to district court for further proceedings. Justice court has two types of civil jurisdiction. First is small claims, and that's up to $10,000. Small claims is designed to be a process with looser, less formal rules of evidence and other matters to allow people to decide or to decide these disputes without attorneys, etc. It's the idea is it's a more simplified procedure. Then justice court has general civil jurisdiction under $15,000. So again, those are we'll see a lot of credit card collection, those type of cases there. In Nevada, we have 40 justice courts with 67 justices of the peace. Pursuant to the Nevada Constitution, there has to be one justice court for each township in the state. And then, as we've mentioned, the district court has appellate jurisdiction over the justice courts. The other type of limited jurisdiction courts we have in Nevada are municipal courts. Municipal courts handle misdemeanors and criminal and civil traffic cases in incorporated cities. And so that's the primary difference between municipal and justice court. The municipal court only covers those incorporated cities like North Las Vegas or Fallon or Ely or Wells, for example. And one key difference between municipal courts and justice courts is municipal courts do not have the same civil jurisdiction that justice courts have. They have limited civil jurisdiction, generally confined to like city administrative decisions, city utility collections, sometimes neighbor disputes, those type of things. So that's one of the primary differences between our two types of limited jurisdiction courts.
Catherine Stocks for the record. This slide is an overview of a sampling of what the Administrative Office of the Court provides for the state. Primarily, our role is to assist the Chief Justice with his or her duties in administrating the judicial branch of Nevada. These bullet point lists just show quite a few of the different areas of what the AOC does. We do support the operations of the appellate courts, which is the entire area of the administrative side, payroll, HR, case management system, e-filing and that. But we also optionally provide case management systems to trial courts in Nevada. And we're with SLFRF funds, state and local fiscal recovery funds, we are rolling out e-file statewide. When we first started the strategic plan, over 80% of Nevada's courts did not provide e-file. That has been a project that we have secured federal funds for and seek some one-shot funding, which to finish out that project. However, we are happy to meet with any of you to talk about these specific areas of support that we do. One of the highlights are our specialty courts. We help support the specialty courts across the state.
Helps if I turn on the mic. John McCormick for the record. And specialty courts generally being an area of interest. Specialty courts are therapeutic courts that use evidence-based practices, treatment, and case management to attempt to address underlying factors that contribute to criminal behavior, including things like substance abuse, mental health disorders, developmental disabilities, veterans issues, etc. The Specialty Court Funding and Policy Committee, which is our governing body over specialty courts, currently provides funding to 64 trial court specialty court programs in the amount of about $8.5 million. Much of that comes from the general fund, for which we are very grateful. In 2021, which is the most recent year that we have data, because to track recidivism you need a 3-year window, so 21's the best numbers we have. But 77% of Nevada specialty court program graduates did not recidivate within 3 years of graduating the program. So that's a it's a big number. It's significantly higher, obviously, than folks who don't receive that therapeutic court experience. And then also in 2021, unsuccessful participants recidivated at a 45% rate, meaning that even 55% of people who did not successfully complete a specialty court program did not have a new offense within 3 years. So again, that's a better rate than we see with sort of the general population. In fiscal year 2024, we had 1,320 participants graduate from our specialty court programs from those 64 programs throughout the state, and 36 babies were born without substance exposure due to the specialty court programs. And that's all we got this morning. So thank you, and we're happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much for your informative presentation. We do have some questions. We will start with Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for being here. So my question is about some of those IT upgrades. You mentioned that last session. I know that's a big project. And I think in your presentation you said originally 80% of the courts didn't have an e-file system. Can you give us the updated stats of how many have it now and where we are in that process?
Catherine Stocks for the record. Thank you for the question. I can follow up with an email of the exact case management slide that shows the progress of that project. We have 9 additional courts that came online in a non-integrated fashion, and we already have e-file in other courts throughout the state. However, we have 34 courts that are on the AOC-supported case management system. Part of those federal funds is upgrading to a modern cloud-based system. As part of that upgrade of the case management system, all 34 of those courts will have integrated e-file. And with that progression of that is by the end of 2026.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Hanson.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. It's good to see you over there. On your slide 5, I just wanted you to explain a little bit more. You touched on it, Mr. McCormick, about Nevada has a non-unified judiciary, just so we better understand that structure.
Thank you, John McCormick, for the record. When we say Nevada has a non-unified judiciary, that means that there's no single unified funding source. For example, in other states, say the state pays for the entire branch, but here we have a funding mix where the appellate courts are paid for by the state, district court judge salaries are paid by the state, but then all staff, facilities, etc. for the district courts are provided by the counties. And then justice courts are exclusively paid for by the counties, and municipal courts are exclusively paid for by the cities. Also, being that all our judges are, except for very few Ely, I mean, there's a few appointed municipal court judges based on city charter, but aside from the 3 or 4 of those, all of our judges are elected officials with that level of independence. And so it's a careful balance in that way between administrative directives from the Supreme Court and creating unfunded mandates and that kind of thing. But that's what we mean when we say a non-unified judiciary, particularly as there's multiple funding sources and there's no one sort of central you shall type administrative authority.
Thank you for that. Our next question is from Assemblymember Cole.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I just have a quick question that probably everybody in this room other than me knows the answer to. But my question is on the definition of recidivate. Does that mean that the person doesn't commit the same type of crime that they were in trouble for before, or is it any crime at all? Thank you.
John McCormick for the record. On the recidivism numbers that I mentioned regarding specialty court, that's any other offense for which they're convicted within the 3 years after graduating. So that would be any offense. It doesn't matter if it's another, say, possession of controlled substance or property or whatever. They have not been convicted of another offense.
Thank you for that. And just for clarity, is that following the national standards or national definition of recidivism?
John McCormick for the record. The definition of recidivism is a hot topic amongst people who care about such things. Generally, what we follow is what the federal government uses, which is no new conviction within 3 years of that graduation or whatever the precipitating event is.
Thank you for that. Our next question is from Assemblymember Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I started getting nervous when you guys, when you were talking about the e-file system, and then you said something that really scared me is that you guys aren't on a cloud-based system yet. Do you guys have a contingency plan if you guys become the victim of ransomware or something that wipes out the system?
Catherine Stocks, for the record. Yes, we do. That is something that we don't publish. We are happy to meet with you to discuss it just for our own protection. But yes, and we actually have participated in national cybersecurity tabletop exercises and then also do internal tabletop exercises for just those issues.
Thank you. That makes me feel much better.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Urick.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. McCormick, Ms. Stocks, nice to see you again. I am just fascinated by those numbers through the specialty courts. That is very encouraging, very impressive. Just for comparison purposes, can you give us an indication of, for example, that 77% recidivism rate? How does that compare to folks that go through the general criminal justice system here in Nevada? Do you have those numbers as well?
John McCormick, for the record, I do not have those numbers handy, and so obviously we'll get back to you with the specifics on that. But it's almost a flip-flop. Anecdotally, it's my understanding that while we have 77% in specialty court not recidivating, we basically have 2 in 3 people through the regular system who do recidivate. But again, that's a general and anecdotal, and we'll get back to you with the specifics.
Thank you very much for that. We don't have any additional questions at this time. So with that, I will go ahead and close this presentation. Thank you so much. The next presentation we have this morning on the agenda is an overview of the 2nd Judiciary District Court of Nevada. So the same, I will allow you a few moments to prepare and settle, and then when you are ready, please proceed and begin with introductions of who is presenting.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Judge Kathleen Draculich. I preside over Department 1 of the 2nd Judicial District Court here in Washoe County. Chief Judge Jones was to make this presentation this morning. You'll see that as we move through the slides. She unfortunately has been plagued with one of the many bugs floating around this time of the year, and so she's homesick today, and I'm very happy to have been asked to make this presentation to you this morning.
Good morning. For the record, Alicia Larud, A-L-I-C-I-A, last name L-E-R-U-D. I'm the Court Administrator and Clerk of Court for the 2nd Judicial District Court.
With that, we'll go to the first slide. You saw John McCormick present a slide similar to this. This is the 2nd Judicial District Court jurisdiction. We're honing in here on Washoe County. That is the 2nd Judicial District. Our population is currently just over 508,000 people. The types of cases that we handle in the 2nd Judicial District Court are felony cases. That's anything you can get more than a year in prison for. Gross misdemeanor cases up to 364 days in the Washoe County Jail. We also handle all civil actions over $15,000, family law matters, probate and trust, guardianships, juvenile matters that include dependency and delinquency. Let's put some faces to these names. This is all of us. This is all 16 judges in the 2nd Judicial District Court. These are all of my colleagues who I have the utmost amount of respect for. They are all so hardworking. So that's all of us. Here we are by the numbers. There are 16 of us. We are all elected officials. 9 of us are general jurisdiction judges. Those are the judges that handle the civil over 15,000 and all criminal. And then we have 7 family division judges. We also have 6 appointed judicial officers without whom our jobs would not be possible. They are our discovery commissioner, our probate commissioner, and our 4 family division court masters. In total, the 2nd Judicial District has 197 employees, 181 of which are full-time. There's our budget at $47 million. $30 million of that is from the general fund, and $17 million of that is in grant and restricted funding. And in 2024, we took in over 19,000 new cases in Washoe County. We are not just judges who preside over cases. We are judges who preside with a specific expertise, and we are judges who have committee assignments, and not one committee assignment, in some cases 3 or 4 committee assignments. Give you an example. Here's a huge list of those cases. Let's just pick one. Business court. This is a court where the more highly complex cases pursuant to Washoe District Court rules are assigned to 3 of the district court judges, and they include things like shareholder derivative actions. You may also be assigned to a specialty court in Washoe County. That would include the adult drug court or mental health court or our felony DUI court. And then in addition to that, you see here listed in amongst all these other specialties, the committees that we might be assigned to, including things such as the Budget Committee, Evidence, or Courthouse Security. These are our case trends. We have an increasing number of complex cases across all case types. I'll talk a little bit about population growth in just a minute. We have seen an increase in Washoe County of our population, and with this have come a lot of new commercial and business interests, and with that, a lot of new commercial and business cases of complexity. Our family law filings and our criminal filings continue to increase. In 2023 and 2024, our jury trials on the criminal side increased significantly. We've had over 14% increase in civil filings from 2023 to 2024. Probate and trust cases, including complex trust cases, have been rising. We had one case in particular that got a lot of press this year that was incredibly complex. And the applications for domestic violence, temporary protective orders, and involuntary civil commitments remain high. Again, something that we see that's endemic of our growing population. This is our jury trials by calendar year. I've already indicated, and you can see that we've got this bump that is significant. It's unavoidably significant in our criminal jury trials in 2023 and 24. One thing I want to point out to you that's very significant is if you look at the jurors reporting there along the bottom line, look at what happened between 2021 and 2024. That's what comes with this increased number of trials. We have to bring in the requisite amount of jurors for that. We actually now stagger the start of our jury trials on Monday and Tuesday mornings in order to accommodate this immense influx of jurors into our courthouse. This is a slide regarding the Mental Competency Court in the 2nd Judicial District Court. This is something we are incredibly proud of. This is without doubt revolutionizing the handling of our citizens who suffer from mental health issues. We started tracking the criminal mental competency cases in March of 2023. We officially established the competency docket in September of 23 and the jail-based treatment program, which means they're not, the inmates who suffer from mental health issues aren't just languishing at the jail. The mental health treatment is now part of that stint in the jail before they can be transferred or their mental health issues addressed. Proudly, since March of 2023, the total number of cases is 246. Defendants found competent after the initial valuation, 68. Of the 176 defendants found incompetent, following the initial evaluation, discretionary mental health treatment as an alternative to prosecution was offered to over 49% of them. And you really have to have the mental health defendants appear in front of you to understand how important this program is, to understand how important mental health treatment is for them in lieu of prosecution. We have 40 defendants that have later been found competent. And really importantly is this last bullet point. Look at that confluence of agencies that is the reason for success. This program is led in the 2nd Judicial District Court by General Jurisdiction Judge Egan Walker and Family Court Judge Cynthia Liu. And for all legislators, I want to inform you that we have a tour tomorrow night that starts at 5:30. It is for legislators. It is at the Washoe County Jail, which is at 911 Parr Boulevard. And we want to have you tour the mental health unit. Judge Walker is going to be present to discuss the mental health competency court. So I want to encourage all of you to take part in that if your schedules will accommodate that. Changing topics, we have a lawyer in the library program. It's something we're very proud of. This is, again, a way in which the Second Judicial District Court serves our community. This is the 25th anniversary of this program. We provide brief, lawyers in our community provide brief, free of charge legal consultations. These are volunteer attorneys with an expertise in family law, probate law, and general law. We have one of the oldest lawyer in the library programs in the United States. We saw a record participation in this program in calendar year 2024. Over 231 lawyers volunteered for this program. I mean, that to me, that is very impressive. We have nearly 1,700 individuals who were assisted, and if you're wondering how popular this program is, we have 646 people on our waiting list. The consultations are held by Zoom, which allows for greater participation by both the lawyers and those seeking legal assistance. We are able to reach a greater number of people in need in our community as Washoe County's population grows geographically, doing this by Zoom. Where do we live? We live in the Washoe County District Court complex. The general jurisdiction judges are housed at 75 Court Street. It is the oldest public building in Washoe County, still in operation. Original structure, 1873. Subsequent additions that have been patched together, 1911, 1946, 1949. The most recent addition to the Second Judicial District Court was over 60 years ago in 1963. Our family court is housed across the street in a much more modern building at number 1 South Sierra. Some of you who have tenure on this committee and at the legislature have heard us talk about the fact that really 75 Court Street is no longer suited for modern court operation. The layout really does put the public and the employees at risk. This is an old-styled courthouse where the judges, in and out of custody defendants, civil case parties, families of all of these people who have cases in the Second Judicial District Court, and court personnel all share a very narrow hallway every morning. It's not unusual to have inmates in belly chains and leg irons walking down one side of that hallway while judges and court personnel, family, civil litigants are coming the other way. Having the operation split between the two buildings, the family and the general jurisdiction court, also creates a lot of inefficiencies. But in 2023, the Washoe County Board of Commissioners identified a new court facility as a priority, and they have been participating very actively with the judges in the Second Judicial District Court toward that effort. I want to thank you very much for your attention. That concludes the presentation on the Second Judicial District Court.
Thank you for your presentation. Our first question will come from Assemblymember Ornlicker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation and for the work you do.
Thank you.
It's a hard job. So you mentioned the significant bump in criminal trials, and we've heard about the change in the DA plea policy, so one would guess that those are related. So is that the case? And whatever the cause, should we be concerned about the bump, or is this a good thing, bad thing? What do you think?
I don't know that we can characterize it as a good thing. Judge Kathleen Draculich, for the record. I don't know that we can characterize it overall as a good thing or a bad thing. I will tell you that the Washoe County District Attorney and his Assistant District Attorney met with every one of the judges individually to explain the policy to us about a year and a half ago. I think that it probably has contributed to the number of trials that we have. You see that they're, as on the slide I provided, they're all, the bulk of them are on the criminal side. But the other thing we have to think about too is what happens after someone is tried. There are acquittals. So the more cases you have, the more acquittals you have. In other words, the more not guilty verdicts. And that has been a function of having more jury trials on the criminal side. Those defendants, I'm not kidding you, the Washoe County Jail is not a large place for the rumor mill, and they go back and talk about the fact that they've been acquitted. So there are more requests by the defendant population for jury trials, notwithstanding the policy. So I think that there are a number of things that have contributed to it. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Our next question is from Assemblymember Roth.
Thank you, and so nice to see you, Judge.
You as well.
My question is in regards, this wasn't touched on in the presentation, but I had heard that the Second Judicial District Court was working on modernizing how they store evidence. And I was wondering if we could get an update on that. I know that when I was a clerk in the court, which was a wonderful experience, there was a very old school way of storing evidence in the basement. And I'm wondering if we can get an update on any progress we're making in modernizing that system.
I love this question, so thank you for that, Assemblymember Roth. Kathleen Draculich for the record. It's true. We have a very antiquated way of storing evidence in the Second Judicial District Court. It is a function of the fact that our courthouse is aging. And I am part of the evidence committee along with Judge Steinheimer, and we have started aggressively addressing the evidence issue. As you know, that is an area of our building that floods at times. We also just spent a measurable amount of money on mold remediation in that room, our evidence room. But what we are doing now is 500 cases at a time, starting on the civil side. We have started a process where we are taking those 500 cases, and they're aging cases, right? Some of them are going to date back 20 and 30 plus years. We are reaching out to counsel who last represented or counsel who will identify as someone that is familiar with the case. And we are telling all of them to come and do one of two things. All of you need to come and review the material, and the two things is, one, take the information, the documents, the evidence, etc. with you, or authorize us to destroy them. We have documents that we require be signed for each one of these cases where someone removes evidence that has been stored for a case that is now very old, or we are having them sign documents that authorize us to destroy them. We got through the first 500 cases not long ago, and we are on the second 500 cases now. And we just had a judges meeting, and we showed slides so that you can see what's happening with that very antiquated evidence room in a door that's in the basement of the courthouse. And you can see what's happening in there as the evidence off the shelves is noticeable in terms of what we're doing to get rid of it. And then the idea is to digitize it all, and we're working on that as well with a new program. So in response to your question, that is something that is aggressively underway.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Hanson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you both for being here. I'm a resident of Washoe County and very familiar, not because I've had to go to court, but other than I've served on 2 juries in that beautiful building, which I'm going to advocate very strongly. I know that you probably need other quarters, but I hope and I have hope that we'll preserve that beautiful DeLongchamps building. So anyway, I'm referring to slide 7 about your jury trials by calendar year. And there is kind of a precipitous drop in short trials. So just if you could define for us what a short trial is in comparison to the others, and then maybe an interpretation of why that precipitous drop.
So a short trial program our short trial program is headed up by Judge Steinheimer. It's a trial that is scheduled to take less than 1 day. We sure would like more of the trials to fall into the short trial program. We recently had a discussion among all of the judges as to why the number had dropped somewhat and what we are planning on doing to do a better job of advertising this program. So our goal is to, in fact, try and get those numbers back up. We certainly find on the criminal side that the trials can be of short duration. We really want to funnel more of the civil trials into the short trial program. And so I think what the issue is now in terms of getting those numbers back up is just education to our civil bar about the fact that it continues to be available. And it is, for your clients, by the way, a less expensive alternative to the extent that you can fit the trial within the program. Alicia, anything to add on that one?
Alicia LaRude for the record. For those who are not overly familiar with the short trial program is established for civil cases where maybe the issues or what is the amount in controversy is not as high as some of our other civil trials. And what that allows litigants and attorneys to do is to come into the program. It's handled by a pro tem volunteer judge who isn't a member of our sitting judge. We seat 4 jurors, and it is guaranteed to be over in 1 day. So it's a huge savings on the cost side for those litigants. In addition, our jurors really like it because they get to come in and we guarantee them that they're going to be walking out of that door at the end of the day and not rejoining us on the following day. So we are hoping that through advertisement, that is something that we will see, again, an increase in. It is one of those that when we unfortunately had to put a temporary pause on trials in 2020, it just really hasn't come back yet.
Are you requesting a follow-up?
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you,
Proceed.
Chair. Is there a monetary limit on the short court? I'm familiar with a constituent that for a civil trial, their scheduled date is 2 years out, but it involves millions of dollars, which was very distressing because they've had to close their business. So in a short court, is there a monetary limit?
Alicia LaRude for the record. There are certain requirements to get into that program, and I would love to follow up with you on what those requirements are. I don't know them off the top of my head.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here. So my question is similar to some of my colleagues. I'm so glad to hear that you are updating our evidence system because I have toured that basement and it is something. I echo my colleagues' concern about even with digitizing, storing it in just one place, it can be hacked. And so I just want to confirm that you are following the model of the other courts and working towards a more secure cloud-based storage system for that evidence.
Alicia LaRude for the record. We are looking at all options right now with respect to how to modernize that evidence system and what that storage ultimately looks like.
Thank you for that. And I just want to confirm, though, are we going to be in line with the other courts in the state as far as best practices, or is Second Judicial kind of doing their own thing?
This is Judge Kathleen Dracula. It's best practices, of course. We always look at best practices for this. And in bringing the evidence system up to date, we have, like I said, we have the evidence committee that works on this really on a weekly basis. We have a new evidence custodian. And with that new evidence custodian, we have brought into play new software for the storage of the evidence, but absolutely always directed toward best practices and which option of those best practices best suits the Second Judicial District.
Thank you. And our final question is from Assemblymember Nadine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, respected judges, for doing such a great work for the community.
Thank you.
So my question is that with the increase in population, there are more cases, and that leads to more waiting time. So how we can help the community and the judges to shorten that time?
You know, this is something that we do as, oh, thank you, Judge Kathleen Dracula for the record. This is something that we do as a bench, and this is something that we do as individual departments. As a bench, we always strive to get every case to court as quickly as we can. Some things that you need to bear in mind, though, with regard to the civil cases are, to the extent that a defendant in a criminal case invokes, in other words, they have a constitutional right to a speedy trial, and if that happens, they take precedent. And when we are setting criminal trials, we bear that in mind. When we're setting civil trials, we do what counsel asks. Some of these cases, they ask to be set out a year or two. A couple of I'm a business court judge. Those are the more complex cases that involve things like shareholder derivative actions. They ask to be set out a couple of years. Class actions, I have a class action lawsuit, same thing. But be mindful of the fact that the civil cases must always take a back seat to any criminal defendant who has invoked. So that is a component of it. And I can tell you, and I mean this with regard to my 15 colleagues, we are always trying to get every case that needs to go to trial as quickly as we can. Things happen. Parties get added, discovery gets continued, a motion to dismiss gets filed. There's a heavy motion practice in complex civil cases. We're doing what we can, but there are some barriers and some impediments to that.
Thank you so much for the great work. Thank
So
you.
welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
May I follow up as well, just to add Alicia LaRude for the record, with respect to our criminal caseload in particular, Washoe County, we're looking at doing some innovative things, adopting a sequential intercept model that has been heavily used in Miami-Dade County in Florida to really decrease the number of cases that we have coming into the criminal system. So if we can decrease those cases by providing appropriate social supports before people ever get into the criminal justice system, that also helps significantly with those caseload numbers.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your presentation in response to our questions. The next item on our agenda is a presentation and overview of the 8th Judicial District Court of Nevada. Okay, I will give you all a few moments to get settled and ask that you introduce everyone that will be presenting, and of course, spell your name the first time for us as well. And when you're ready, you may proceed.
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of the committee. My name is Jerry Weiss, Jerrywiese, and I'm the Chief Judge of the 8th Judicial District Court.
Andres Moses, Andres, last name Moses, Moses, and I'm the Assistant Court Administrator for the 8th Judicial District Court.
So I'm going to provide you an overview of the 8th, but after hearing from the Supreme Court in a second, a lot of this is going to be monotonous, so I'm going to try to skip through these slides as quickly as I can. If you have questions about them, I'm happy to talk to you about them afterwards. Go ahead. This is just a organizational chart. You've already seen something similar, so I'm going to skip that. This is a history of our the historical growth of our chart of our court over the years, the way the legislature has helped us meet the growing needs of Clark County with judicial resources. We're going to have more to talk about on this when we talk about our AB 66 in a little while. This is currently we have 58 district court judges in Clark County. We have 18 hearing masters who serve as quasi-judicial officers and 678 full-time and part-time employees. We're the busiest district court in the state. High volume of cases and constant fiscal pressures require us to be efficient and innovative in managing our caseloads to serve the community of Clark County. This just talks about where we get our authority from the Constitution, Article 6, Section 6, the kind of cases we hear. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. You've heard most of these things. So our general jurisdiction division, we have 32 judicial departments. You'll see the names of all my colleagues up there, and I haven't done this in the past, but I wanted to put what our case assignments were just so you see that we have most of our departments are split civil criminal, but we have a number that are all civil. They have specialty assignments consisting of things like medical malpractice, time comp writs, business courts. You can see the different things. The focused specialized approach allows us to develop a deeper understanding of complex legal issues, resulting in more consistent rulings and expedited case resolution. So, go on to the next one. So we have 32 that are general jurisdiction. We have 26 judicial departments in our family division, and you can see how they are divided as well. We have 6 departments dedicated to juvenile dependency, 2 for juvenile delinquency, 4 are half guardianship and half domestic, and the remaining 14 judges are all civil domestic, which is divorce and child custody. Next slide shows our court facilities. We are responsible for 4 different court facilities. The primary one is our Regional Justice Center. We had over 600,000 visitors in 2024. We have a family court building that's separate, over 223,000 visitors in 24. And then we have the Phoenix building, where we have two departments housed and some other smaller departments, and the Greystone building where we have our child support facilities. Next number of slides deal with funding. We're primarily funded through general fund dollars from Clark County. Last session we passed SB 63, in which the Nevada Legislature modernized NRS 3.100. Hasn't been updated since 1865, so this made it consistent with the Sparks case. As I said, these are more funding slides. You can see that the majority of our funding comes from the Clark County General Fund, but some of it comes from other fees and grants and things like that. Our total budget's over $136 million for 2025. This is our 5-year funding history, just essentially showing that we're trying to be responsible with the money that we're given, and we generally come up under budget. So, next slide talks about total pending cases for the last 3 years, 22, 23, and 24, in the different areas. So in criminal, our pending cases have gone down because we've started using a criminal settlement conference program that helps us resolve cases more speedily without the need for trial, which has helped us resolve a good number of cases, as well as the efforts of our homicide departments. In civil, you can see that our total pending cases have increased over the years from 30,000 to 35,000. Family court went from 32 to 29 to 31. It's fluctuating back and forth. Next slide shows case flow management. It shows a number of criminal cases filed in 2024. There are over 8,000 new cases filed, over 14,000 closed. So you may wonder, how come we're closing more cases than are filed? That's actually the goal, because we always have cases that are left over from prior years. So the goal is to close more this year than we have filed, and that way we're eating into the backlog that we always have. There were over 73 criminal trials and 2 criminal bench trials last year. Next slide shows our case flow trends of criminal cases being filed. I'm not going to go through the numbers. This is end of year pending criminal cases, just essentially showing our backlog reduction. We're trying to eat into that backlog as much as we can. Next slide shows case flow management, our civil case filing statistics. And I wanted to address, we had a question earlier of the second dealing with the short trials. As you can see here, the green on the second graph up there is our short trials. Short trials are generally cases that are valued at under $50,000. Those are the cases that automatically go to the mandatory arbitration program, and those are the ones that funnel up into the short trial program. Unfortunately, we've seen a significant reduction in short trials, similar to the second. You're going to be presented with AB 3 later this session, which seeks to increase the threshold from $50,000 to $100,000 for the arbitration program, and it should double the number of cases that funnel up into the short trial program, which will increase our short trial numbers and hopefully decrease the number of trials that need to go up to a full-blown civil jury trial. The next slide, as we've already discussed, we have specialized judges that hear complex business, construction defect, probate, and medical malpractice cases. You can see the numbers of those cases that we have filed in 24. Following slide shows our civil filing trends. This is just informational in case you're interested in trends. As you can see, we've had a big increase over the last 2 years, which we'll discuss more in the AB 66 hearing. Next slide shows our pending civil cases. You can see that they wax and wane depending on the year and what's going on, how we're able to, it depends on case filings as well as the number of trials and things like that. Following case is a chart showing different types of cases in our civil division with the number of pending cases. You can see the majority of them are general civil cases or probate, with small numbers of med-mal, construction defect, and business courts. Following slide shows our family filing statistics. Our family domestic is our largest, and those are generally the divorces and child custody. There were over 19,000 filed last year. We disposed of 24,000. We also have child support cases, temporary protective orders, civil commitments, juvenile dependency, which are abuse and neglect cases, and juvenile delinquency, which are juvenile criminal cases. Family case filing stats, this is just provided for informational purposes as well. Let's skip through some of these. The next one, we have a slide showing the domestic case trends of the family division. You can see those are pretty flat, but the last, we had several years we were at about 17,000, and the last 4 years we've been over 19,000. So just shows increase over time. This next slide is also year-end pending family domestic cases. This is just for informational purposes. Next slide, you can see there's a wide variety of cases in family court with pending case numbers in the different case types. Next slide is specialty courts. We currently operate 17 specialty court programs. We have 7 judges and 4 hearing masters that preside over those various specialty courts. And you've heard some about that and recidivism rates. The next slide is 2024 statistics for each of those specialty courts. Next slide shows recidivism rates, and we've already discussed that. We're very proud of the fact that the recidivism rates in our specialty courts essentially mirror those that the Supreme Court was talking about, and it helps people, whether they graduate or they don't graduate. The fact that they're provided treatment and helps them so they're not committing crimes as much as those that don't receive that extra care. Next slide is just gender and demographic studies, or statistics for our specialty courts from 2024. I'm not going to go into detail on that. Next slide is shows where we get the funding for our specialty courts. I know this isn't the Finance Committee, so I'm not going to talk about that. Following slide is our CASA slide. Court-appointed special advocates are a big part of our family division and help individuals who are in foster care. And we get reports from these individuals who are CASAs, and they come and they give us the best interest of the children. And over the years, we've been able to get additional funding to advertise this program. And you can see the numbers here from 2020 to 21, 21 through 22, and then I think some of the more recent numbers show that based on the advertising that we're doing, we're getting more and more people interested in the CASA program. Our goal is to provide a CASA for every child. We're not there yet, but we're well on our way. We appreciate everybody's help and that's assisting us in that. Next slide talks about probate court reforms. You're going to see bills about this. You're going to see we've worked with Commissioner Fontana was one of our probate commissioners. He was appointed in 22. Within the first few months, he implemented a bunch of changes so that we can try to avoid some of the probate things that you may have seen in the news in Las Vegas with people taking houses and property from somebody that wasn't entitled to it. We're just in the process of trying to resolve all of those little problems. Next slide is our court orders and warrants. We have a program called OIC, Order in the Court, that allows us as judges to sign orders from home or from the office or wherever we need to be. Same with search warrants and pen registers and things like that that assist our law enforcement. You'll see that our orders in 2024, we signed over 247,000 and over 10,000 warrants. The interesting thing about this, a good percentage of these orders and warrants were signed either after hours or on weekends and holidays, which I'm very proud of the fact that our judges are working all hours of the day and night to help facilitate resolution of issues and getting cases closed. Judicial workload, people wonder what judges do, and everybody knows that we do trials. What you may not realize is that before any trial happens is we have lots and lots of court hearings. People file motions and things like that, and we're in court a lot of times for motion hearings, what we call law and motion calendars. The orders we've already talked about, warrants we've already talked about, and the last one is study, research, and review. A lot of the time that judges spend in their to get ready for a trial or to get ready for a motion hearing is in their office, reading the pleadings that the parties file, doing legal research so that we know the right answers, and trying to come up with the best decisions we can on all the issues that are presented to us. So that's our workload, and that's a picture of most of our judges. And that concludes our presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Judge, for being with us today in your presentation. We will start with questions. Assembly Member LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here. So I was drawn to slide 11, where you talked about your budget. And of course, we're not the Money Committee, but I did notice that you are not spending your full budget every year, and I appreciate the fiscal responsibility. But I wonder what happens to that extra money. Does it revert to the county, or does it stay in a savings account? Where do those unspent funds go?
As far as I know, it doesn't stay with us. You want to answer?
Andres Moses for the record. So a majority of that unused money comes from vacancy savings. So we have over 700 employees. So as you can imagine, we do have a vacancy rate that we work hard to try not to have, but it does happen. So all of that money does revert back to Clark County, and I believe they use it for their capital funds.
Assembly Member Orlicker.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for your chair, vice chair, and thank you for the presentation. And I'm curious, we talked a little bit with the Second Judicial District about the transition to cloud-based storage. Is that something what are you all doing with regard to cloud-based storage?
Jerry Weiss for the record. As far as I know, we are not using cloud-based storage, but in Clark County, we have two separate sites where our information is backed up that are completely independent from each other. If Las Vegas is destroyed, I think we may be have a problem, but I don't think we have cloud-based storage, do we?
Andres Moses for the record. I do know we use Switch as one of our facilities for our storage of all of our case stuff, so all of our case files electronically stored. But I'll have to get back to the committee to confirm that, about the cloud question.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assembly Member Hardy.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Good to see you. I just had a couple of questions regarding probate, slide 17 and 20. I noticed you were discussing about other caseloads, the disposed cases compared to the filings. And I noticed you had more filings than were disposed. So I was just wondering if you could just touch on a little bit, is that the nature of probate, like generally how long that takes? Or you also mentioned you did hire another judge to handle probate cases. So if you could do you think that'll help? And is that kind of why that happened, that you didn't have enough staff hearing them?
Yeah, so Jerry Weiss for the record. Our probate numbers are huge, and it is a problem. We've recognized that as a problem. Some of our probate cases will last 50 or 60 years because you have trusts that are in place and overseen by the court for many, many, many years. We hired a new probate commissioner, Commissioner Fontano, back in '22. We just recently hired a second probate commissioner, which we are hoping will address the numbers and make it so that our resolution rate will go up, and the red and blue lines will interchange. We're hopeful. We're doing what we can, and we know the numbers are too high.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assembly Member Hanson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here. I appreciate you elaborating more about the short trials and how that's working, and that bill that might be coming forward. Here we go over here. That bill, I think you mentioned AB 3.
Correct.
So we'll look forward to that. When we talked earlier, yesterday, you were talking about the caseloads. So could you remind us what the caseload has gotten higher in the civil cases and in family court? I remember as a freshman here in 2019, there was a real big increase in the mental health space of court. And it seems like maybe that's because of some action that was taken here at the legislature, we've seen a little bit better management of those caseloads. But now it seems like civil and of course family tend to, am I right? Am I remembering some of the details from yesterday that growth has been where you're seeing a lot of growth or continued growth?
Jerry Weiss for the record. We are seeing continued growth. I don't know that it had anything to do with mental health care or treatment back in 19. I think it's just based on, and understand that as a court, we often don't know why there's trends up or down, right? Sometimes we can look at a policy of a district attorney or something like that, but other times our numbers will wax and wane and we're not sure why, and sometimes we don't know if it's a fluke or if it's a new trend. So right now our civil numbers are way up last year. We don't know why. I think we had 4,000 or 5,000 more civil filings last year than we had the year prior, and there's not a reason that we know of for that. We don't know if that's a new trend, if that's a new base or not. But yeah, we have more cases than we can handle.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Moore.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. My question is around CASA. I have seen the commercials and social media campaign around CASA. During your presentation, you mentioned that your goal is to have one CASA volunteer per child, and that you're not there yet. How many more volunteers would you need?
Jerry Weiss for the record. I look back at Steve Grierson because he's our CASA ambassador. He's our court executive. He says we need an additional 500 volunteers in order to get one CASA for every child.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Not seeing any more questions, I will go ahead and close this agenda item on the presentation of the 8th Judicial District Court and open the hearing. Our next agenda item is a bill hearing on Assembly Bill 66. This measure revises provisions relating to district courts. So I will invite the presenters up. And please, I'll give you a few moments to get settled. And of course, when you're ready, please introduce yourselves and good to see you and proceed.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Lydia Stiglich, Lidia Stiglich. I'm here representing the Nevada Supreme Court. Also presenting, at least on this portion of the bill, will be Judge Thomas Stockard, to my right.
Tom, T-O-M, Stockard, S-T-O-C-K-A-R-D, District Court Judge for the 10th Judicial District Court in Fallon, Nevada.
And Mr. McCormick, John McCormick, will be joining us at the table. Starting without him is like doing this without a net, but I'm gonna do my best. Here we go. Introduce yourself.
John McCormick for the record.
Right, so AB 266 is more judges bill. It creates 25 new judgeships across the state. Those would be effective for election in 2026 and then would be on cycle with the rest of the judges every 6 years. With respect to coming to these numbers and how it breaks down, here's how our presentation will proceed. I want to discuss with you the need. In particular, I'm here to address the rural situation and the rural asks. We have colleagues from the 2nd and from the 8th who are better able to present to you their needs, their statistics in their larger districts and field your questions. But with respect to that, why do we need more judges? Well, Nevada, as you know, has experienced a lot of growth. The secret's out. There's more people moving here. We're the 6th fastest growing state. In the 10-year period from 2010 to 2020, we grew 15%. We're up to 3.26 million now. We're still growing and anticipate as more people come here to live, work, play, and start businesses, the judiciary is going to have to grow to meet those needs. With respect to that, our bill here is one in which we try to make sure the judiciary is of the right size to meet those needs, incoming needs both for litigants and lawyers as well as the judges. So with respect to the districts other than the 2nd and the 8th, why do we not want one judge districts? Well, it's an access to justice situation. First of all, judges need vacations, they get sick, and sometimes if it's not shared misery, it's just misery. They're out there by themselves, serving the public, doing the best they can, but they're by themselves. It makes it difficult sometimes for litigants to have meaningful access. And what do I mean by that? 8th JD, it's kind of the Goldilocks situation. The 8th JD is so large that they can specialize. They have civil gen jur judges, they have criminal gen jur judges, they have mixed, they have specialization, they have district courts and family courts. Washoe in the 2nd, by contrast, is big enough and small enough. It's big enough that it has general jurisdiction courts, but small enough that it has general jurisdiction courts, but big enough that it has its own separate family court. When we go out to districts outside of those two, they do everything. Your one judge is the civil judge and the criminal judge and the probate judge and the family judge. So they wear a lot of hats in trying to give this service in terms of providing specialty court service. Because there's just one judge out there, oftentimes those needs are met by a senior judge. So not an elected official in the community serving those as the judge in those specialty courts, but a senior judge, quite simply because they don't have enough bandwidth. And there's still that awkwardness of, today I'm your sentencer, and tomorrow we're in our therapeutic court, and tell me how you're doing. And so just trying to provide service that makes sense to the litigants and perpetuates a feeling of fairness in that regard. And all of the judges that I'm asking for today would be here in support of this bill. I'm here for them because if they're here, they're not holding court because there's just one of them. So part of this is keeping the doors open, keeping the access available, and making sure that we can meet the needs as those communities grow. So to that end, and Judge Stockard will be able to weigh in, to that end, what we did in developing this bill is speak to our stakeholders, because as you know, these costs are split. The Supreme Court pays for district court judges' training, salary, and benefits, but the counties have to bear those other costs. And that's why our judges have had to reach out and work with their counties, and I think that's probably going to be an ongoing process. But in that regard, we are asking for one additional judge in the 1st JD. Now, the 1st JD is Carson City. Carson City has 2 judges. It's also one of the 3rd busiest per judge districts in the county. The 3rd judge would make sense here, so it's one additional judge there, because in addition to their needs, again, their family, criminal, civil, their proximity to the capital means that there are things that happen that are disruptive because they're important and they have to happen quickly. And so that additional judge allows them to be nimble when things like ballot questions come forward or issues that emanate here uniquely in Carson City and uniquely to that courthouse. So we are asking for one additional judge in that county. And on a per judge basis, currently, it is the 3rd busiest district in the state. We're asking respectfully to add an additional judge in the 6th JD. That is out in Winnemucca, and it's served by, in Humboldt County, served by Judge Montero. We are asking in the 10th for one additional judge. That's Judge Stockard in Churchill County. Judge Stockard currently, on a per judge basis, services 5 less cases than every judge in Clark County, which is the busiest district. So he doesn't look tired, but I feel tired sitting next to him. But Judge Stockard is amazing, and he's been servicing that county by himself for a long period of time. In the 11th JD, that's Judge Shirley, and that is one of our kind of throwbacks. He rides the circuit out in the 11th, so that's Lander, Mineral, and Pershing, and they don't even all touch. But Judge Shirley by himself goes to three different counties within that judicial district to provide access to justice, and we are asking for one additional judge in that county to help him serve those, in that district to help him serve those 3 counties. We have kind of a similar situation in the 7th, which we're not asking for judges. We have 2 judges that serve White Pine, and those 2 judges serve Eureka, White Pine, and Lincoln. So the 2 judges are able to manage those 3 counties and move about. We're asking in the 11th to add an additional judicial officer to help serve them. So that's kind of the quick overview of, as to those districts, what and why and how many. And I'll turn it over to Judge Stockard.
And Judge Shirley and I, between the 10th and the 11th, we cover each other. We do settlement conferences for each other and those types of things, and that would provide some relief there. I would like to just speak in the 10th in Fallon what we've been doing to prepare for this, and we've done it, and I think it'll be able to address some of the questions that came up during the AOC's presentation. But we've looked at 4 things that we would need to do before we could feel good about coming to the legislature and asking for this, and one is to make sure we have the facilities. Our current courthouse, before the 10th was created, housed 3 judges that were shared between Churchill and Lyon County. In our existing facility, we could accommodate the additional judge. Fortunately, we're not going to have to because we're in the final stages of breaking ground on a new courthouse that we anticipate will carry us into at least the direction the county commissioner has given us for at least the next 50 to 60 years. And so we have the space where we are now, but our new courthouse will definitely do that. We've also been able to upgrade our case management and our technology. We have, with the help of the Administrative Office of the Courts, we have implemented a statewide cloud-based and secure e-filing system. What that does is, besides for the security issues, and I used to lose a lot of sleep on how we previously stored our information, particularly when I was at the Judicial College and I heard about some of the nightmares that some of our sister states had gone through. But it's opened up for the citizens of our community the ability to get counsel who doesn't have the burden of having to come out just to file a document. Now they can e-file. We can do routine hearings by Zoom, and it's reduced the costs to retaining counsel for a lot of our local community members. We also see we're statewide jurisdiction courts. Sometimes some of our sister counties litigants, if they live in Fernley, it might be more convenient to come to Fallon than to drive to Yerington, and so that's contributed to our caseload. So we've implemented an e-filing system and also a cloud-based case management system that has really streamlined and made us much more efficient. We've developed a business plan on what personnel we'll need if this bill becomes law. We've identified the exact cost to the county, and we've got buy-in from our county manager and our county commissioners to fund those costs if this bill is approved. And then finally, we've engaged the stakeholders in our community. I've met with the mayor of Fallon. I've met with our county manager. I've gone to our county commissioners come and tour our courthouse, and we've talked about it there. I've met with the local bar, and the support for adding an additional judge has been overwhelming. And so I think that at least for our community, we have the things in place to transition successfully, and I hope to be able to increase the access to justice and the timeliness for all the members of our community as they seek to come to court. Thank you.
And as to this portion, if there's any questions, we're prepared to field them.
Thank you so much. We do have a few questions. The first one will come from Assembly Member Dahlia.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate it. I have a quick question. So referring to Section 1, I see that the number of judicial postings is tied to population and a weighted caseload study. I see that we've been provided with a pretty detailed weighted caseload study for District 8, but I'm not seeing those for other districts. Have those weighted caseload studies been performed, and if so, can those be provided to the committee? Thank you.
John McCormick for the record. That Section 1 that you're referring to, Assemblymember Dahlia, applies only to the 2nd and the 8th in terms of that population trigger. So we have not done necessarily the full, packet level weighted caseload studies in the other districts.
Do you have a follow-up?
I do, Chair. Thank you.
You may proceed.
My apologies. So there has been a weighted caseload study performed for the 2nd district?
John McCormick for the record. I think so, but we should probably ask the 2nd to be sure, because I could very well be wrong.
Thank you.
You, of course, may invite anyone up to respond if that works for you.
Good morning, Alicia LaRude for the record. In response to that question, the 2nd does not have a current weighted caseload study. We are in the process of working through that. We did try to initiate one last year through the National Center of State Courts, which is the primary vendor for those studies. And right now they are booking, well, at that point in time, they were booking out into 2027. So we are trying to find a different avenue to get that caseload study completed.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Roth.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. This question is actually specific to the 2nd Judicial District Court, and it kind of piggybacks off of that. So first, I want to say I appreciate so much, and I know how hard judges across the state are working, and how committed you all are to ensuring access to justice for everyone. While we are asking for more judges and there's not a weighted case study that's been done, I'm wondering if there's some additional tracking or information that can be provided to the committee, because I don't think that the two larger jurisdictions, Washoe and Clark, are really similarly situated in how cases are moving through the system. We've heard a lot about this new plea policy that was implemented in 2023, and then the increase in cases that resulted from that. So I'm wondering if there's any tracking that's been done in relation to that to kind of help the committee understand where the need for the new judges specific to jurisdictions comes from, so that we can ensure, if we need that increase in trial, the cost, that's being considered.
All right, thank you. This is Kathleen Draculich. Kathleen is Kathleen, Draculich is D as in David, Rakulich. In the presentation that I went through with regard to the 2nd Judicial District earlier this morning, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those factors, one of them being, as you pointed out, the additional jury work. Keep in mind that for every day we are on the bench, we are not in the court. You know this, having previously worked in the 2nd Judicial District. When we're on the bench, the orders mount, the pleadings mount, and then, we are there at 8 or 9 o'clock at night or on the weekends. And so it's the complexity of the cases, it's the number of court cases that we are actually seeing go to trial. I can't emphasize enough the complexity issue with regard to the cases that we are now seeing as a result of the influx of so much new business throughout Washoe County. In addition, the last time we added a family court judge was in 2019. The population growth since that time has been almost 50,000 additional souls in Washoe County. We're at 48,500 now. We expect that number to hit 15,000 shortly. We have not added a general jurisdiction judge in northern Nevada since 2009. And I want you to think about what's happened to population growth, what's happened to business growth in Washoe County since 2009. During that time, the population itself has increased by 85,000 people. So all of those additional cases have just that come in, or the matters as they become more complex, are the things that are driving our request for additional judges. Alicia, anything to add to any of that?
I would just add, we do have extensive data with respect to case filings that we can provide to the committee. Some of the complexity of cases, as Judge Draculich just alluded to, some of it comes in the form of more complex civil matters that are just difficult to quantify using only numbers. In our family division, we now estimate that we have between 70 and 80% of those litigants who are self-represented. So when you have a self-represented litigant who is prosecuting or litigating out a family matter, that then puts increased pressure on the court. It requires increased court time because there is a requirement, not a requirement. Judges spend more time in court with those litigants because more explanation is provided actually in court proceedings. In addition, it puts additional staff pressures because instead of attorneys preparing orders, the court ends up preparing all orders. Quantifying the number of self-represented cases to a precise amount is very difficult because some litigants come in with an attorney, they get through a certain portion of their case, and then their attorney withdraws for whatever reason. And so we often have litigants who move in and out of the status of being represented by counsel. But we can certainly provide this committee with some of those case filing numbers and additional data.
Madam Chair?
Yes, please,
If
Your
I
Honor.
may.
Yes.
To Assemblymember Dahlia and Assemblymember Roth, we do have some numbers that we rely on. They're not the weighted numbers necessarily, or the depth that we will provide to the committee. With respect to outside the second and the eighth, however, it's not just the numbers. It's both geography and the access to these other courtrooms to the community. But we will provide that data to you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this. So I'm happy that Second Judicial is here because that's what my question is about. So you mentioned a lot of the constraints of the current building, and I have toured that building. I know we have staff in broom closets. We have a judicial master that doesn't even have a courtroom right now. And so I just wonder, what is your plan to fit 3 additional judges and staff in a building that's already bursting at the seams?
It is bursting at the seams, but we will be able to accommodate that on the family court side. We do have judges that currently do not have courtrooms. We do have judges that are currently in not very desirable accommodations, but we will continue that path in order, the objective and the more important objective being adding the judge. We will make those accommodations. The same with the Second Judicial District. During COVID, in order to create a larger courtroom where we could keep jurors and court personnel away from each other, we completely did away with our general court clerk and filing area and created what's called the complex litigation courtroom. And we also have a much smaller courtroom that does not have its own jury, but we will work around that. And that's called Courtroom A. And that's a courtroom that could accommodate another district court judge. It's going to be tight, but the objective here is the additional judges, and we're going to make it work.
Proceed.
And I appreciate, because the access to justice is obviously the most important. And I understand we're going to adjust courtrooms, but where are you going to fit all of the staff, I think is the larger question.
Alicia Lurid for the record, thank you for the question. With respect to our 2 general jurisdiction judges who would be added, as Judge Draculich just mentioned, we do have the complex litigation courtroom and courtroom A that are currently used by visiting judges or for larger cases, those both have adjoining staff areas. With respect to our request for an additional family judge, we do currently have 2 of our family dockets that we continue to run primarily via virtual means, mostly because it's better for the litigants. They are our child support docket and our domestic violence docket. And that gives us an additional courtroom space because we have been able to pull the equipment needed to keep the record for those dockets into office space rather than courtroom space. We have done office sharing in that building with staff, so we do have some extra staff capacity within our family building. And we do continue to have some employees, not all employees, work on a hybrid basis, which has enabled us to really flex out some of the spaces that we do have available. So again, it is a tight squeeze. It doesn't eliminate the need for a new courthouse for other reasons, but we can accommodate this request in existing facilities.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assemblymember Hardy.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to you all. My questions you may be able to answer are specific to the 8th Judicial District. Hello. So I just wanted to, if you could just go through what specifically you're requesting, and then just to follow up what my colleague was asking about, if this passes, how would you plan to accommodate the new judges? Not to date myself, but I remember when we didn't even have family court judges. We had one courthouse. I remember when they built the RJC, et cetera. So if you could just elaborate on how many the 8th Judicial is asking for, and then what your plans are to accommodate the judges, the staff, in the overall effort to alleviate the caseloads and move the cases along.
Excuse me, Jerry Weiss for the record. I had prepared remarks. The way this has happened, do you not want the remarks? You just want us to answer the questions?
Please respond to the question.
Okay. So as far as the question you're asking, I met with most of you yesterday and discussed the fact that we are working with the county as far as location is concerned. Currently, the 8th is asking for 18 additional new judges, which our courthouses are full right now. So those 18, we would need a new building. We have been working with Clark County, and Clark County's been working with us towards understanding the need for new judges and understanding that we need a new facility that will house them. We've worked with the county as far as whether or not we're going to expand the family court campus or if we're going to build a south tower. My meeting last week with the county manager, it seemed that they were going to be fairly equivalent in cost, so it shouldn't be an issue, but there's plans in the works. I guess that's all I can say for now.
Yes, please, Assemblymember.
So let's just say until and if those additional buildings would be built, I assume you would have a way to take in the new judges, courtroom sharing, et cetera. If you could just share that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Jerry Weiss for the record. We do have a plan. When I came on, actually, I was elected in 2010, started in 2011. There were, 7 or 9 of us at the time, and we did courtroom sharing at that time. Our chambers were housed in an adjacent building. We have plans to do something similar to that. We can do courtroom sharing if necessary. We can do virtual appearances. COVID has taught us that there's ways to handle our work without being present sometimes. It depends on the need, right? If we're going to do a trial, we need a courtroom. Hearings need a courtroom. But there are other things that we can do without necessarily being there. And there's ways that we can do telecommunicating, administrative orders, and we have plans to handle that in the interim while a building is being built. so we can get the job done. We just won't be able to provide the same level of availability of a judge in a courtroom until those facilities are completed.
Thank you for that. Our next question is from Assembly Member Orlicker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentations. I'm looking at the different provisions, and they're worded for the X judicial district, there must be Y district judges. And that's pretty standard from provision to provision. And I could imagine it saying for the, looking at Section 5, for the 6th judicial district, there must be at least 2 district judges, rather than prescribing the exact amount, prescribing a minimum and giving some authority to the counties. If they want to go above the minimum and they can fund it, they could. Is this typical? I know we're Dillon's rural state. I know a lot of states are. Across states, is it typical to prescribe specific amounts as opposed to minima? Or is there variation, do you know, from state to state in terms of staffing courts?
This is Jerry Weiss for the record. We don't know the answer to that, to be honest. This is how it's always been done in Nevada as far as we're concerned, as far as we know. And neither Judge Draculich nor I knows what other states' statutes read as far as the number of judges. This is part of the reason that we have proposed this statute to modify the language so that instead of having to come in and ask for 18 at a time, because we haven't had any judges for so long, that they would grow by population and caseload. So that if that happens, then the number of judges over time would increase based on population and caseload, and that number would, I guess it would modify automatically.
Thank you. We will go next to Assembly Member Hanson.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for taking all our questions. When we talk about size, I guess I pick my poison. I'd rather have a little problem with space than I would with not being able to have justice served quicker. So we know we might be in that position, although I think Judge Stockard addressed that they, in his jurisdiction, have really kind of addressed some of those needs. And I think we have a really large new legislative building in Southern Nevada, so perhaps we could lease some space out to the 8th Judicial Court. In regards, I'm going to be here to advocate for the need for those judges in some of the counties that were mentioned. 4 of my 6 counties are on that list for a need, and I have seen it up close and personal. Rurals have trouble with access to health care. The needs and the docket have grown on family court issues in the rurals. We have a real need in dealing with drug issues, mental health issues, and so the load of those judges I've seen myself is a lot, and so I am very supportive of this effort put forth. One of my questions, my question would be, I think, Judge Draculich, you mentioned you have 19,000 cases just in 2024?
This is Judge Kathleen Draculich. Thank you for the question. Yes, 19,000 new cases in Washoe County in 2024. That is the number.
Okay, I just wanted to have you clarify it on the record, make sure I got it right, because we were talking about, do we have some numbers, some showing some of the issues. So thank you for making sure I got that number right. Well, again, thank you for your time, and look forward to seeing how this proceeds.
Thank you. Our next question is from Assembly Member LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the second question. So my question actually, I think, has to do a little bit more with the rural. So I don't know if you need to shuffle seats again, but I'll give you a sec. So I noticed that in Section 1, we have a metric by which we are accounting for population growth in Clark and Washoe, and they automatically get new judges when they grow by 40,000. My question is why we are excluding the rurals from that specifically? Are we just anticipating that they will never grow by 40,000? Could you just maybe talk to us a little bit about why they were left out of that growth metric?
John McCormick for the record. I think you're on something that Assembly Member in terms of the population growth. And another 40,000 people in Churchill County is going to take forever. And so it's sort of an economies of scale thing. That number is more appropriate from the urban jurisdictions and the rural jurisdictions, since we're talking access to justice, having multiple judges. That population trigger didn't really fit.
Thank you. So I understand that. I guess my question is, why do we have to say that in statute if we're not anticipating them to grow by 40,000? Why are we putting a pop cap in the first place? Why not just leave it, and if Churchill suddenly grows by 40,000 next year, then they are accounted for?
John McCormick for the record. I think that's a very good question. And I don't necessarily know that I have an answer right now, but I think it certainly can be a topic for discussion moving forward.
Assemblywoman Hardy? Okay, thank you. With that, I will go to our final question from Vice Chair Marzola. Whoa. Okay. That was fast.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, may I make a comment?
Who is that coming
Judge
from?
Draculich.
Yes, please.
This is Judge Kathleen Draculich. By virtue of the fact that you are a district judge in the state of Nevada, and there are 80 plus of us, you are a member of the Nevada District Judges Association. This year, I serve as the president of the Nevada District Judges Association, and you've heard from the 6th and the 8th and Judge Stockard here on behalf of the 10th. On behalf of the rest of the rural districts, who are such an important part of our makeup of judges throughout the state, I have been authorized by their board to offer support for this bill. And that would include those districts who are asking for more judges specific to the bill and those who are not, who support the bill. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We will go to Assemblymember Cole.
There we go. Thank you very much, Chair. Question for you. I think my biggest question is on, let's see here, it'd be in Section 1, subsection 3, where we talk about providing for the increase in the number of district judges in a judicial district and how that works if you don't actually need the judge. It's based on that population of 40,000 increase. And then there's work between you and the Clark County Commission or whatever commission it is, and you actually work with LCB as to whether or not you actually need that. So my question is on the logistics of that and whether or not the county would maybe want more control since they're funding it. Thank you.
Thank you, John McCormick, for the record. This provision actually mirrors the provision for adding justices of the peace based on population that currently exists in Chapter 4. So we brought that model over, and it's always been, there's a relationship between the court and the county to discuss and make that work. And necessarily tipping the balance of power in one way or the other is probably not a great solution in terms of adding judges. Because with the option the court has to say, yes, we've reached the trigger, but we don't need a judge, they can do that. And also, I think the way this is constructed, it's incumbent upon the court to work with the county to make sure they're in concert.
Thank you for that. And with that, we will now again go to a question from Vice Chair Marzola. I didn't realize you had left.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for the 8th Judicial District Court.
Loving this musical
chair. We need to write something for more chairs in the committee room.
Feel like it's good exercise. Thank you again, Judge, for being here. Thank you for the updated study. On page 6 of the your final report dated August 2024, I know it states filings per judge and time to disposition were the leading indicators as a result to adding judges. My question is, and maybe somehow I missed it, do you have a breakdown of where it shows the number of filings per judge and time of disposition per judge?
Jerry Weiss for the record. This is it's a long study. It's a lot. Do you know if we have that in the exhibits?
Good morning, Steve Gerson, STEVE-GRIERSON, Court Executive Officer and Clerk of Court for the 8th Judicial District Court. In this particular weighted caseload study, there is no indicator of the number of judges per filing for this particular study. But we can certainly get those. We report on them every month. We report on time to disposition every month, so we can provide those to the committee.
Perfect. That was going to be my ask, if I could. Yes. Thank you. If you can give the committee a breakdown of each judge, the filings, and their time of disposition, but broken down per department, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we have no further questions, so I will open it up for testimony. We will first begin here in Carson City. We still don't have access to Las Vegas, so we will then move to the phones. Again, those of you that are out there in the world, if you have testimony, you may call in or submit your testimony in writing, specifically for those who are not able to access our office in Las Vegas right now. So again, I ask that everyone limit their comments to 2 minutes each. We will first start here in Carson City. Anyone wishing to make testimony in support of Assembly Bill 66, please proceed. And again, just a reminder, please say your name and spell it for the record.
Thank you, Chair. Eva Segerblum, EVASEGERBLOM. I'm president of the Nevada Justice Association. We are here in support of this bill, AB 66. Obviously, a tenet of our organization is access to justice. We feel that having more judges will obviously increase access to justice for Nevadans and to the right to a jury trial. I practice primarily in the 2nd Judicial District Court, and I can tell you we are setting trials out 2 years, like Assemblymember Hansen stated, and it is really impacting victims, and so we are here in support of this bill.
Is there anyone else here in Carson City in support? For those wishing to testify on the phone, the number is 1-888-475-4499. The meeting ID for today is 899-0109-6600. Broadcasting, will you open the lines for the phone, please?
If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 66, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 66, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now. Chair, there are no callers choosing to participate in support of Assembly Bill 66 at this time.
Thank you. Then I will move on to testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 66. If there's anyone here in Carson City, please proceed.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jeff Rogan. That's Jeffrogan. I represent Clark County. Clark County opposes AB 66 with regard to the 8th Judicial District Court request for 18 new judges, the single largest increase in the history of the court. We also oppose the parts of the bill that call for automatic increases of judges based upon population and caseload. Population of a county does not correspond to an increase in judicial workload, as Judge Weiss testified. We don't really know why filings go up and filings go down. An automatic increase also removes your authority to decide whether the number of judges should increase and obligates the legislature and the county to provide for these new judges in the future. And for perspective, the judges themselves provided a handout, and they anticipate in the next 10 years anywhere in Clark County between 84 and 90 judges, and thereafter between 94 and 98. There's also not enough data to support an increase. The court's own study is unfinished. They admit this on page 3. They say the methodology of their report is only a starting point for determining the number of judges. It needs to be utilized in conjunction with other data points, which we don't know yet. Their report calls for an additional study called the time study, which they haven't completed and which won't be completed until this summer, after the session. Also missing from your consideration, as Assemblywoman Marzola mentioned, are other factors on pages 5 and 6. I ask you to take a look at page 5 and 6 to look at those factors that the court does not talk about in its report to you today. In conclusion, we're willing to work with the court, but based upon the court's own report, the relevant data just isn't there and won't be completed before the end of session. We don't think that this report is therefore accurate and comprehensive enough to justify their request for 18 new judges and thereafter 94 to 98. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City? Broadcasting, will you open the lines, please? Again, we are in testimony in opposition.
If you'd like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 66, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Caller, you're unmuted and may begin.
Yes, good morning. My name is Stuart Evans Hanty. I'm a former 50-year resident of the state of Nevada, former retired law enforcement officer from the state of Nevada, 30 years, honorably retired. I want my comments permanently recorded for the record in this particular legislative committee meeting, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this morning. First of all, I'm opposed to this bill because the courts are so quagmired with bad case law. That is why they're asking for more judges. And the problem exists with bad cops performing bad case law, which is then turned into the district attorneys, which then goes in front of these judicial district courts. Having been in the legal system for 30 years myself, I've seen it firsthand how the system is quagmired, again, using that terminology, with bad case law. As it should be noted that under NRS 282010, you have to be bonded, and any judge in any judicial district court in the state of Nevada has to have bonds, and they have to have valid recorded oaths of commission. Under a FOIA request, I have learned that all the judges in the Second Judicial District Court are not bonded, or not have valid oaths of office or commission. Therefore, they're endowed in their respective positions. So my statement to you this morning, Legislative Committee, is that we have a problem that exists in the legal system of the state of Nevada, and having been a victim of a corrupt legal system perpetuated by a corrupt district attorney by the name of Christopher Hicks and judges in that Second Judicial District Court. This is why you have over 19,000 cases pending in that court, because there's too much bad case law being perpetuated by lower members of the legal system and therefore put forth into the district courts, and that's why you have an issue. And again, I spent 50 years in the state of Nevada, 30 of which in the law enforcement profession, and I speak from firsthand experience. And I oppose this bill, significantly oppose this bill by form of being victimized by the Second Judicial District Court of the state of Nevada. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Stuart Hanty, Handte. Thank you.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was going to ask. Next caller, please.
If you have recently joined and would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 66, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Yes, good morning. This is Matthew Scarlatus. requesting or stating that I am against or I am opposed to the bill. This has to do with, that's in line with the previous caller, Mr. Hanty. And this regards, I'm speaking on behalf of a gentleman by the name of Robert Jason Ramirez, who was sentenced last February in Judge Draculich's court, CR 23-0249, criminally charged with very serious violations to the trial. Was sentenced and sent to the Northern Nevada Department of Corrections, where he was then less than 6 months later placed in the Desert Sands prison in Clark County, Nevada, for reasons that make absolutely no sense. His public defenders denied or delayed his appeal on numerous instances. This gentleman was brutally treated while incarcerated at the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, and the circumstances to his case make absolutely no sense based on the evidence and the information that was withheld, including
sir,
the
sir,
body
is your
cam footage of his
testimony?
arrest.
Sir, can you speak more directly to the bill, please?
I am speaking directly to the bill. You have a lot of people in the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, in the jails and in the prisons, that don't belong because they're as Mr. Hanty spoke to, they're being unlawfully charged, they're being unlawfully incarcerated, and they're being unlawfully sentenced. Thank you.
Thank you. And could you also restate your name and spell it for the record as well?
Chair, there are no other callers to testify in opposition at this time.
Okay, thank you. And just a reminder too that we want to make sure that we are not, we don't need to necessarily name individuals when we are opposing or supporting any proposed measure. But with that, I will open it up for testimony in neutral.
Chair Miller, I apologize. Jonathan Norman for the record, JONATHANNORMAN. I meant to come up in
We are
support.
in testimony of neutral, so
Okay.
What is your request right now?
May I be able to testify in support? I apologize.
We will change to support, but again, I think everyone knows what I'm going to say, right?
Yes.
All right. So I will, but first let me just make sure, is there anyone, excuse me, wishing to testify in neutral? Okay, then I will accept your testimony in support.
Thank you, Chair Miller. And again, I apologize. Jonathan Norman, Coalition of Legal Service Providers. Generally, we support the addition of more judges as it enables more access to justice. We appreciate the complexities of where to house judges, but generally we think it is good to have more judges on the bench to take time with pro se litigants. Thank you again, and again, I apologize.
Thank you. We will move back to testimony in neutral. Is there anyone, excuse me, here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral? Broadcasting, will you open the lines, please?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 66, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 66, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in neutral at this time.
Okay, thank you for that. With that, I will invite the presenters up if you would like to make any brief final remarks.
Thank you, Chair. Jerry Weiss, for the record. I just want to comment on a couple of the comments that have been made. As far as case filings are concerned, case filings are important, and we will get that information to you, but case filings don't tell the whole story. That's why we did a weighted caseload study. That's why we did an update of our caseload study, because the different types of cases that judges hear require different time commitments. And we tried to provide information that provided you with the best information we could. We will give you the other statistics, but I just want to suggest to you that the statistics of case filings don't necessarily tell the full story. The only other thing I want to say in conclusion is the bill AB 66, while it requests additional judges, we are not asking for additional judges so we have less work to do. All of us will continue to work 40-hour weeks or more. The ask is to give us additional judges so that we can provide better access to justice to the people in our communities. So that instead of waiting 4 or 5 years for a civil trial in Clark County, we can provide access to justice and people can get trial dates and get a trial resolved within a year or two. That's the ask. The ask is not to try to make it so we're doing less work. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lydia Stiglich for the record. I want to thank the committee for considering this bill. We don't always anticipate all the questions you may have, and you may have more questions later. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are happy to hunt and gather whatever information is necessary or statistics help you in this determination. But thank you for your time here today. We know you have a lot on your plate.
Madam Chair? Judge Kathleen Draculich for the record. Again, I want to thank you all very much, not only for considering the bill, but for all of your very thoughtful questions. We really do enjoy coming here and being asked about what we do and why we do it and why it's so important. And I want to thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, and with that, I will go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 66. Next on our agenda is public comment. Again, just a reminder, public comment is not to make comment about the bill that we just heard, but for other issues that are under the purview of this committee. So again, the number is 888-475-4499. The meeting ID is 899-0109-6600. I will first start hearing Carson City. Anyone that would like to approach and make public comment? Not seeing any. Broadcasting, please open the lines.
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Yes, good morning, Stuart Henty for the record again. I would like to add an additional comment to what I just stated. It seems to me as being
Sir,
the victim of the Second Judicial District Court.
Sir, I'm going
Go ahead.
to again restate the policy. Public comment is
The
not,
policy is that I want to comment that the court system does not want.
the comment, it should not be on the bill. It should be on something else under the purview of the committee. But it is not to make comment again on the bill.
Ma'am, I'm Stuart Henty for the record again. I'm not commenting on the bill.
Okay.
I'm requesting the committee listen to me for just a minute, okay? Self-representation is a right afforded to us in the United States Constitution. And there was some comments earlier regarding self-representation. I hope the committee would understand that there are those of us out there in the public world, arena, however you want to interpret it, that request self-representation through the court systems. And having gone through the court systems, there's a vaunted effort to not allow us to do so. And I'm requesting through the committee meeting today, please listen to me, that there is a lot of criminal corruption taking place. As a member of law enforcement and a 50-year resident of the state of Nevada, I deserve my voice to be heard. I'm requesting that the committee listen to me and take note, because I've emailed every one of the legislators in the state of Nevada on this very serious matter regarding our court systems, regarding probate fraud, the multi-billion-dollar a year racket. And there are people's estates and trusts and lives that are being taken on a daily basis, and Nevada is no exception. Case in point, April Parks out of Las Vegas. Another case in point, Rebecca Schultz. And the most serious case that I've been
Sir,
involved
again,
in,
I
Madam
ask
Chair,
that we not
is
name
the murder.
names. So if you'd like to.
I'm sorry, I'm going to name names. It's public
Okay,
record.
broadcasting, next caller, please.
Anne Marie Grant for the record, ANNEMARIEGRANT. We have every right to name names, and you should want to know who they are. How about you let people start talking before you cut them off? This has been your MO since you've been the chair of this committee. I'd like to inform you of the corruption that you've all been on notice of, at least the folks who are return elected officials, of the corruption and abuse of community members in Washoe County, Nevada, where my brother was murdered by Reno Police and Washoe County Sheriff's Office, hogtied for over 40 minutes during a mental health crisis and asphyxiated to death. I was outside protesting at the Second Judicial this past summer when DDA Amos Steggy came outside, and I said, hey, there's Amos Steggy. Do you have any comment on your malicious prosecution of Stuart Hanty and Roger Hilligus? Where Mr. Steggy then gave me the middle finger, which is all on video obtained through a public records request.
Is this under the purview of this committee?
This is public comment. You're the judiciary, are you not? None of the many elected judges in Washoe County have no oath of office. I personally have had several people reach out to me regarding malicious false prosecution in Washoe County. They aren't about justice and truth in the Washoe County DA's office. My brother's case, my brother's murder, never even got a review by the district attorney. It's time for you all as elected officials to start making some laws to hold the judges, the corrupt district attorneys like Christopher Hicks, Jennifer Noble,
next caller,
DDA
please.
Steggy, to hold them accountable.
Broadcasting, next caller.
Make some laws and hold them accountable.
Again, we are absolutely fine with hearing testimony, and we are absolutely willing and ready and able to address corruption. But for the protection of everyone that works, regardless of which job or profession that people are in, naming names with accusations that may or may be unfounded is not really appropriate or safe for individuals. And so please, it is absolutely okay to make comments about situations, but when we start naming names, that's when it becomes very challenging. So again, everyone's allowed to make any public comment they want. Believe it or not, we have very thick skin, including those sitting here that work in this service. But again, the request and the requirement is always that we're respectful and that we're not harassing or accusatory. And again, naming names for things that may or may not be founded is a challenge. With that, I will take the next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 499. You are unmuted and may begin.
Hi, my name is Christine Middleton, and I just want to say that I do agree with the last couple of commenters, Anne Marie and Stuart. Something needs to be done. The only thing I don't agree with Anne Marie is there already are laws in place to handle judges, entities that work outside their duties and their authority, which seems to be happening. My father is missing. He was put in what you would call a guardianship. However, you're not allowed to move people around without keeping it on a docket. You also have to have due process. These little things they haven't given us. So the whole thing is fraud, human trafficking, elder abuse, aggravated, false imprisonment. Of course, they've taken all his property, which is what the whole thing was about. And the laws are there. So I don't understand why when we come to you and have a complaint to look into a situation, because guardians commit crimes every day in this country and judges commit crimes every single day in this country. And the reason that it keeps going on is because the elected people, the appointed people are supposed to do something. Look into it. There has to be a place for us to go. And I've been ignored by the police department, the sheriff, every agency. I have gotten statewide investigations, and I was validated. Everything, all my claims are substantiated. But it's really hard to get these investigations. And the only place we seem to have is federal court to sue, like the counties and the people in charge. And we put everybody on notice. We tell you ahead of time. The Constitution protects all of our rights. It doesn't give us our rights. You can't take our rights from us. We have the freedom of speech. It's not to be censored. We can name names. We can name places, dates, times. There is no one with authority to tell me what to say or what I cannot say unless I'm threatening somebody.
Okay,
and I can
thank you.
understand that part. But
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
you can't tell us
Thank
really
you, ma'am.
how to comment.
Thank you, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
You're over time, but I'm going to also ask you to spell your last name for the record because I don't think we got that spelling and want to make sure we have that accurate.
Right. Okay, it's Christine. It's with a C, and then Middleton is Middleton.
Okay, thank you. Next caller.
And thank you.
Yes, my name is Roger Hilligus, Rogerhilllygus. I'd like to comment on what's going on with the committee and the legislature regarding the conviction rate is what we have to look at. Why is it so high for the district attorneys? That's troubling and problematic. It's in the high 90s. That's why things take so long to go to trial. There are no grand juries, which is a violation of the Constitution. There's no probable cause hearings signed by a magistrate. There's false arrests made by law enforcement. These are Fourth Amendment Constitution violations. The DA overcharges and stacks charges on people. There's no trials, proper trials, which is a violation of due process and speedy trials. I heard that it's taking up to 5 years to take somebody to a trial. There's anonymous juries, which is only supposed to be used for the extreme murderers, MS-13. I mean, these people are mafioso type. The problem is the legislature needs to increase the representation of the people. You don't need to get more judges. You need to get more training, and you need to increase the number of representatives for the people. If the population's growing, the number of representatives is not. There's the problem right there. You need to train law enforcement to make proper arrests because they're violating people's rights in these arrests. And then you move on to the prosecutors and the district attorneys that are making malicious prosecutions. I guarantee you, you look into a lot of these prosecutions and there's malicious prosecution, there's false arrest. Start with nipping some of that in the bud and you won't have to hire 18 judges because there's too many prosecutions and the percentage is way too high.
Sir, you're over time, so I'm going to ask that you wrap up your comments.
What I'm talking about is going to cost the state and the counties massive amounts of money until this legislature starts making statutes that are going to protect the people and stop the malicious prosecution, stop the false arrests. It's going to cost this state and these counties massive in civil rights complaints, human rights, and violations for false arrest. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
If you have recently joined and would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, you may begin.
Hello, my name is Hayden Flores, and I'm calling on behalf of my father, Jose Flores. I am just calling in to ask for your committee to do a corruption probe or just look into Washoe County's Sheriff's Department and DAs, specifically with how they handle different types of accusations. Unfortunately, my father was a victim of a false accusation, and he's incarcerated for life. And what I'm hearing here is unfortunately all too common, so I really hope that you listen to us and take the time to look into what is going on specifically in Washoe County. That is HAVENFLORES. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller?
Sarah, the public line is open and working, but there are no other callers to provide public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you for that. Then I will go ahead and close public comment. With that, that was our last agenda item for the day. Thank you, members and everyone else, for a very successful morning. And with that, I will adjourn and see you all at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.